Good afternoon and welcome back to College Football on Tap, brought to you by On Tap Sportsnet. I am Chris White, joined alongside with Bruno Oger. What's going on, Bruno?
How's it going, man? Fun. A lot more fun of a weekend in college football than expected. These games got pretty wild. I know I was able to sit around and watch almost all the action all day, and I wasn't too excited about it. But one heck of a weekend. A lot of good games ended up coming out of it.
Yeah, I was not so lucky. I was at my wife's grandpa's 80th birthday party, so I checked in on the TVs here and there, but I couldn't sit down and sit there for 12 hours like I usually like to on Saturdays.
Yeah.
But before we get into all the games this weekend, breaking news: Michigan State has started the process of firing Mel Tucker.
Yeah, we didn't know how long this investigation would really go on for. I know that's kind of been looked into for a little bit now, but the news didn't really come to us until last weekend. And now, after a disappointing week in a lot of ways for Michigan State and their football program, it looks like this is going to have a pretty swift conclusion in terms of Mel Tucker, as it looks like he will be fired probably by the end of today.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's been a very hush-hush kind of investigation going on. We haven't really heard too much news. Nothing's breaking to any of the four-letter network guys or any of the other big breakers. Kind of just saw this 10 minutes ago that he was getting the boot.
Yeah,
we're kind of clueless on the story still, but I'm sure that'll come with time.
Yeah, I get pretty much every single notification known to man in terms of sports apps. And the only one I got so far, which is kind of random, was from CBS. So CBS Senate is normally not the first newsbreaker of all sports in terms of what comes to my phone. And that's the first one that I seen. And I mean, it happened right when we were in the middle of getting into the studio for this episode. So last week, I think we missed out on the Tyler Buckner starting for Alabama, as our show.
5 minutes.
Yeah, and then now right before the show starts, we get the Mel Tucker. So I guess things were made up for this time around.
So I wonder, do you think the school had maybe known about this prior to the breaking news? Do you think that has anything to do with the overall outcome of the game on Saturday?
Yeah, I think the school probably had a good idea beforehand because, for it to come out Monday afternoon, I feel like it was just kind of let's get through the weekend. They had a game that was important to them in some ways that obviously, they did not perform well. I think the final score was 41-7. Was not a game that you even put on the TV because the game was over before it started. That's obviously probably a lot of students are struggling. A lot of these football players are struggling. Their coach is someone that they trust.
It's like a father figure. I mean, that locker room is, we talked about a little on Friday. I mean, that locker room is a very fragile ecosystem.
Yeah.
Anything can make or break it. And this is, it's a scary situation for a team like that, especially one who we all would like to see on the rise. We always want to see the Big Ten more competitive than just, Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State. We want to get everybody involved. That makes for better TV, better football.
Yeah, and they thought Mel Tucker was that the solving to any problems. Obviously, they gave him a 10-year extension 2 years ago after having a very impressive season when they were a team that was figured to have a down year. And then the following year, they ended up having a down year again, which was unfortunate last season. But I know that there's always a lot of hype around that program, and they were hoping to come out this year and get back on track. And playing Washington as they did this week, if they would have beat them at home, that would have obviously springboarded them into the top 25. They would have been 3-0. But
without a doubt, Washington would have taken the same trip as Tennessee near the bottom of the top 25.
Yeah, and Washington just dominated them in every aspect. Probably weren't prepared to play. Different coaching styles. D'Antonio might have gone in there a little bit, and he's got his own ideas and probably his own methods that might be changing things a little bit. I know that he's not the head coach, but he's like assistant to the head coach or whatever they're calling it. So it's obviously a lot of things can happen in that locker room throughout the week.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I had mentioned, I didn't watch too much football, but they start messing with schemes. He tries to bring in a new playbook, possibly. I doubt it, but possibly. But because I didn't watch, I don't know how the penalties were. A lot of delay of games when you see a change like that. A lot of just confusion at the line of scrimmage, nonstop all game. I can't speak on that, but the score would reflect an idea like that.
Yeah, like I said, it wasn't a game that even made the TV for me that night. So I saw the score early when I would have flipped to it, and I was like 21-0. I'm okay. I'm not gonna waste my time going to this game right now.
Right.
But yeah, obviously we'll probably see the exact news report come out a little bit after we're done here with this episode, and see what the full details are and see if they uncover anything or any more specifics in terms of the story. And then from there, it'll be getting the recovering process for a university that's had to do a lot of recovering over the recent years. So it'll start up again for Michigan State. Obviously like you said, we'd like to see some of these schools start to compete. And being
Absolutely.
from the Midwest, I don't want these Pac-12 schools to come in there and start just stomping all over the Big Ten way of football. So,
yeah, you don't want USC and Washington and Oregon just beating the absolute piss out of Michigan State, and even higher but lower teams like Iowa and even Illinois gets scrappy sometimes. They don't have the best track record, but they've put up a fight against some top 25 teams over the past couple seasons.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, so we'll keep following the story as it comes out with more. But other than that, we'll get into this week's slate of games and how everything ended up finishing up. Obviously, the big story last week, with the lack of big high-profile games, was Colorado and Colorado State, thanks to the trash talk between the two head coaches. And
did it work?
Yeah, it ended up being a really good game.
Yes, it did.
It ended at about 1:30 a.m. our time here in the Central, so 2:30 Eastern time. So a game that went really late. I fell asleep around 12:30, 12:40. I had quite a few beers that day watching games all day. I couldn't keep my eyes open anymore. But right before I fell asleep, Colorado was down, and then Shadir Sanders led them down a 90-plus yard touchdown drive to tie it up and send it into overtime. And you said you were able to finish the end of the game, and I know that Colorado won in double overtime, but I did not see the specifics of it all.
There was confusion there. I was able to catch a little bit, not the ending. I think I was asleep by like 11 something.
Oh wow! See, I made it way farther than you then, but yeah,
I got crazy kids.
Yeah, I mean, we were preparing for NFL Sunday as well. I had a party for my work and I couldn't push it that long. But yeah, Colorado ended up pulling it out, but an unimpressive victory. And in terms of where Colorado State was getting blown out by Washington State the week before. But that Colorado State team came pumped up. I saw one of their players score a touchdown with a high step, doing Dion high step early on in the game. It was a lot of pushing and shoving before the game. So it brought back that Colorado rivalry. And it ended up being probably one of the best game on television all day long. And it took until a game that started at 9 p.m. for to be decided. So
it's like all those Blackhawks playoff runs back in the day. They always got to go to triple overtime and keep us awake until 2 a.m.
Yeah, I was happy that I was young back in those days.
Despite my feelings on Coach Prime, I am liking what I'm seeing out of Colorado, but I really, really was pulling for State. It's not personal. I like shaking up the system. I like when long shots come, overcome. And I'll reiterate, I mean, it's good for the sport. It's better TV. I mean, it makes everything better. It just makes it that much more watchable.
Yeah, absolutely. Still to that point, though, Colorado still is that main story, and it adds a little bit more juice to a very juicy week 4 as they step into Oregon, which something that caught my eye earlier today is last week on Friday morning, I was looking at some of the things talking about what Colorado's future schedule was and having to play Oregon and stuff. And the spread on that game was -14 this time Friday. Now, as of Monday this morning, when I looked around 10 a.m., Oregon is now a 21-point favorite. So 7 points have swung the other way towards Oregon after Colorado's performance on Saturday against Colorado State not performing as well as they would have thought. So now the odds makers are really sitting there saying Oregon's going to go out there and step on Colorado's throat.
Yeah, it's not so much of a head scratcher now. They might be a little more confident in giving more points away.
Yeah, I mean, 7 points is a pretty large swing. I'm not sure on the status of Travis Hunter, as Travis Hunter did get hurt early in this game for Colorado. So taking away one of the big playmakers, ruining a lot of our bets because we all threw some money at Travis Hunter after that week 1 showing. But hopefully he's in good shape and he is able to go out there and play on Saturday against Oregon, because that's a game that we want to see this every single athlete that's on that Colorado team get out there.
Absolutely. Yeah, we never want to see anybody get hurt, first of all, period. But to take the fans out of that perspective, I mean, to lose that big part of that big impactful game.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the fans, that's the school, the parents, the students, everything. You hate to see that, especially building up to something like this.
Yeah, so
Oregon did jump up 3 spots in the top 25 while Colorado lost 1.
Yeah, Oregon went out there and took care of business. In terms of their spread line, they were playing a much lower team. They played Hawaii this week. They destroyed them. They were supposed to destroy them, and they went out there and proved it. And I think that's why you could kind of see that kind of shift. Oregon, I think, won 55-7, and Hawaii is not really that bad of a school. They normally put a pretty competitive team out there. So for them to go out there and just do what they did, very impressive heading into probably one of the more higher profile games that either team will play all year, especially with the new emergence of Colorado, a team that's already won 2 more games than they won all of last season. So,
well, I mean, you have to think too, like a lot of these games are scheduled 7, 8, 9, 10 years in advance.
Yeah.
I mean, when Oregon and these higher schools, were they booking a not so great Colorado team to, pump them up for weeks ahead, the same Appalachian State, Michigan vibes from, was that 07? Like you always want to start out beating the crap out of somebody.
Yeah. This is a conference game though. So this is put together a year in advance when they.
That's right. That's my mistake.
Yeah. So this is something that they normally see. And probably, I mean, if they play each other last year, I know they don't have to play each other every year, but I'm sure.
I think is it every other or every 3?
Yeah, it really depends. I'm not sure if they're on that same side of the conference or anything like that, but this will be the last year of it anyway. So
yeah,
but Oregon,
or everything gets torn down.
I'm sure over the more recent years, every time these 2 teams have met, Oregon's probably gone out there and slapped them around quite a little bit. So we'll see if Colorado is able to go out there and compete with them come next week. But yeah, not an impressive showing. Someone who did have a very impressive showing this week was Florida against the Tennessee Volunteers, a Tennessee team that was ranked, I believe, 11th coming into this.
All the way down to 23.
Yeah, and you saw Florida at the beginning of the year play Utah with a backup quarterback at Utah. Yes, Utah's a good team, no denying that, but they are not the same without Cam Rising at quarterback. And Utah was able to handle them pretty easily at the beginning of the year. So didn't expect to see Tennessee come out there and struggle and lose, but Florida ended up kicking their butt in the swamp. They were just a more prepared team, a much more physical team. And Tennessee just continues to have that kind of happen to them, it seems, year after year. It just seems like they can't put it together and be the Tennessee Vols of old, what they expect there. And they lose games that they're not supposed to, and they lose them in bad fashion.
Yeah, that was a game I was not able to watch. I couldn't believe it when I read it. I got that, 2-minute warning, upset alert from Bleacher Report or ESPN or something. And I was sitting there like holding my one kid in one hand and holding my other kid in my other. And I'm talking to my wife's step great aunt or something like that. And I was like trying to find a TV, but I was not able to peek in on that one. My thoughts on it are, can you claw your way back from 23? I don't think so.
Yeah, and
Not playing in the SEC.
Yeah, I mean that's not something you normally see anywhere, but when you play a SEC and you're on the road, obviously, I mean it's Florida. That crowd's always going to be amped up, no matter what their team record is, or what the expectation is, because they expect to win. They expect to be a dominating school all the time. And this time around, they really came out there and showed it. They were much more prepared. And if you come out like that in the SEC, Tennessee, you're going to continue to struggle. You got to be more prepared. Like Graham Mertz is a highly recruited quarterback for Florida, but he hasn't really ever had that opportunity to step up, and for him to control the tempo of the game, it's just
kind of step in as that sort of field general that a team really needs, a team that they look up to. Like, you're a quarterback, you got to be that guy. Everybody's looking up to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he pulled it off. But while we're on the SEC subject, Alabama, I tuned into that game. I had it playing on my phone or my brother-in-law's iPad or something, and I watched up until the weather delay just to check out Buckner, because I figured Bama, South Florida, probably going to be a 50-0 game. Mm-hmm. But I want to see how Buckner plays. Holy shit, was I wrong.
Yeah. Tyler Buckner started the first half of the game, and he didn't make it out of the first half of the game. He was 5 of 14 with 34 passing yards. He was not very impressive. So not a quarterback that Alabama needed him to be. And we said after week 1 that we thought that Alabama found their quarterback in Milroe, and Ohio State was still in a peril with their quarterback of McCord. And now after week 3, it's opposite.
Hit the Uno reverse.
We don't know what's going on. And McCord seems to be the guy in Ohio State now. So, but we'll get on that a little bit later. But yeah, Tyler Buckner, not great. They brought in another Ty Simpson to replace him, and they didn't really have him throw the ball too much. I think he only threw 9 passes, was 5 of 9 for 73 yards, but no touchdown passes out of him. The final score of the game was 17-3. So South Florida couldn't score on a stout Alabama defense, as you normally expect with SEC schools going in to play teams like this. But South Florida hung in there, had opportunities to try and take the lead on Alabama, just weren't able to pull it off. But this could have easily been a disaster for Alabama.
And even though they pulled out a 2-score win, I mean, they still not surprisingly, dropped 3 spots in the top 25.
Yeah, just not an impressive showing. South Florida actually got blown out by a Western Kentucky team that went out and got destroyed by Ohio State this weekend. So it's just kind of showing like Alabama might not even be a top 20 team if this is the performance that they're getting and this is what they get out of their quarterback. If their quarterback play doesn't improve, they're going to have a hard time getting through their SEC schedule. I don't know what their next big tier game is. It's actually this week, in a week of ranked versus ranked teams. I think there's like 6 ranked versus ranked matchups in week 4, and Alabama is playing Ole Miss this week. It is in Tuscaloosa, but Ole Miss ranked 15th, Alabama ranked 13th. Like, after Alabama dropping, that's going to be a tough test for them. And even if they get by this, there's plenty more coming. So Alabama's got to figure it out fast.
Yeah, and while we're kind of flirting around with Alabama, I saw this earlier. I know I'd mentioned it to you. Notre Dame transfers over the past, I don't even know, X amount of years. I feel like Phil Jerkovic was on the team 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Tyler Buckner, you'd mentioned 5 for 14, 34, 15.2 QBR. Benched in the second half. Drew Pine for Arizona, I believe, or Arizona State, 5 for 13 for 52 yards. 2 picks, 2.9 QBR. Loses 29-0 to Fresno. And Phil Jerkovic on his 3rd team, I believe he's with Pitt now. 8 for 20, 81 yards, 0 touchdowns, 3 picks, 10.3 QBR. Loses 17-6 to West Virginia. That is what
so
former Notre Dame product is doing around college football.
It's a lot of Brian Kelly recruits there at quarterback. And, that's been one thing that's always surrounded him at Notre Dame was his ability to go get the quarterback needed. They did have Jimmy Clausen. That was great there. But Ian Book was good.
Jimmy Clausen wasn't the end of Charlie Weiss? Was that a Brian Kelly recruit?
See, it feels like Brian Kelly was there for so long, but yeah, you could be correct. Now that
it's kind of a blur. I feel like Kelly was there for 5 years. In reality, I think it was closer to 12.
Yeah, 13. It was a whole. It was at least 10. So it's been a while, but yeah, you could be correct. I just remember seeing Jimmy slinging the ball for the Bears like 4 years ago. So
holding kicks on pretty much every squad.
Yeah.
Before we hop off the Notre Dame topic, which we won't stay too long on, I'm just grateful that now that Hartman's in his last year of eligibility, CJ Carr did not dip out with Reese or Kelly, because I believe he committed before Freeman was even. Obviously, he came in as a DC, but I don't know how much he has to do with recruiting quarterbacks. But that's always a nice thing.
It seems like he's been in. It seems like he's been in the mix for a while. I'm like, he's not here yet. So, and I know earlier today, Notre Dame did end up getting another 4-star quarterback recruit.
Deuce Knight, I believe, or it's a really cool name. It's Deuce something.
Another, it is
AP all name.
That's another good pick up there for your Irish, and the quarterback room continues to improve with that. So it is different to see this in terms of like the talent that is out there still in college football. I mean, I know Phil Jurkovec he was at Boston College for quite a while, and now he's the quarterback at Pitt, I believe. And
I texted my dad when I saw this, and I was like, the guy's got to have been in the NCAA for like 6-7 years now. I mean,
with the COVID year, a lot of players have stretched out their stays a little bit longer than
COVID and 2 transfers. That'll do it. He probably redshirted his first year at Notre Dame.
So yeah, he struggled this week. His team didn't score a touchdown against West Virginia in a game that I thought Pitt was going to win, and West Virginia just played stout defense and ended up controlling his team as well. So this is his last year. He went to Pitt because he wanted a shot at winning the ACC title in his last year at quarterback, and he thought that he was the right guy for the job there. And not really a great performance there in conference play against West Virginia this week for them. So rivalry game, you hate to lose them, and they just didn't show up to score. It was a really, really boring game, hard to watch.
I believe our friends over at Irish on Tap met him after a Notre Dame game. I don't even know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. But I thought that was cool. I missed out on that Notre Dame game. But we do have a comment over here on YouTube. For any of those watching over on Twitter, come out to YouTube, and you can leave comments, questions. We'll answer them, talk about them. Tin Knocker 73. Who has a bigger QB problem, Ohio State or Alabama?
Right now it's got to be Alabama is the shift for us. Like 3 episodes ago, we said that it was Ohio State, but Kyle McCord ended up coming out there and having a great performance against Western Kentucky this week. Pretty much they just took over the game in the second half when it looked like Western Kentucky was going to stay in this game for the long haul with them. And that didn't happen. Ohio State ended up putting up 63 points. Alabama couldn't even throw for a touchdown pass. So I got to say, obviously McCord also has the wide receivers that he has, but right now you got to feel a lot more comfortable with him than anything we're seeing at Alabama. McCord was 19 for 23 this week, 318 yards passing and 3 touchdowns with no interceptions. So I'll take that any day of the week.
Yeah, I was texting my one buddy from work. He's a big Ohio State fan, and kind of just giving all the same old bullshit. And we were kind of talking back and forth about how Ohio State really not so much struggling, but, has to do better against bigger teams as they go on. And then 5 minutes left in the second quarter, they proceeded to score, 3 touchdowns and then kept piling on the second half. So I think that kind of buries that question if they keep that same caliber, that same level of talent in that position.
Yeah. I mean, they have the running game. They have the running game there. They have the wide receivers to help out the quarterback. So we saw it. We saw it this weekend with McCord. And next week they play Notre Dame, a game we've been talking about for quite a while here. So we'll really get to see if McCord can handle the big game, as this is going to be their first real test, but it's also going to be Notre Dame's first real test. And the good news there, Notre Dame struggled a little bit on defense against Central Michigan this week, but that was with a lot of starters getting the day off, whether it be due to an actual injury. I know J.D. Bertrand had a concussion. He was told as of today that he will be in, Marcus Freeman stated. And I know that they had a couple of other guys that were kind of sat out just as precautionary measures, just to make sure that they were ready for this game. So we'll see with Ohio State and Alabama. Right now, I think Alabama's in a lot more peril, and I think Alabama is set up to possibly lose this week at Ole Miss. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, it feels like just yesterday. I don't know if it was our first show or our second, just a few weeks ago, but I remember talking about how I'm not sure if there's ever going to be a point in my life where I don't see Alabama in the top 25, and I feel like it's all coming to fruition. Like,
it's possible.
I'm more of a root for my team than root for others to lose, but man, this is sweet. I'm loving
it. Yeah, it definitely is different to see. Sticking with the SEC, I guess, since we're right there, talking about Alabama, Georgia and South Carolina this week. We talked about Georgia having their first major matchup and kind of like downplayed it. They were a 26.5-point favorite against South Carolina, but it honestly looked there for a while like South Carolina was going to go and pull this one out. They were up 14-3, and they held Georgia down for quite a while. They didn't allow Georgia to get up on them and keep scoring. It ended up being a 24-14 final, Georgia winning, ultimately just being the better defense in the second half, as you come to expect from Georgia. But once again, Georgia having a new quarterback this year, their situation is not exactly the greatest, I would say, with it. So the offense hasn't really found its ability to score and put up a lot of points. And we'll see how they end up doing against the rest of the SEC coming forward, as I know their defense is enough to win them every game pretty much. But
unfortunately, yeah, that is the way it is right now, and they're going to keep riding that high. And there is nothing wrong with that. They recruit them, they put them together well, and for the millionth time on this show, it's different recruiting down in the SEC.
Yeah.
Everything, I don't know why, but my brain always goes to South Carolina. Never just a regular game day. It's always them coming close and just never putting that final nail in against these big games. I don't remember if it was 2019 or 20. They almost took down Clemson in overtime.
I feel
this last weekend here, they're never too much in the conversation, but they always do a couple outstanding things every year that we like to highlight.
Yeah, I mean, they've been able to go and get big time head coaches after they leave their main job. That's really where they made their legacy, with Lou Holtz from Notre Dame, Steve Spurrier from Florida. They've gotten these head coaches that are like, oh, dang, this is going to be the one to turn around South Carolina and have them be a big name in there. Steve Spurrier did a good job, I think, he had 1 or 2 seasons where they were up there in the top 10 for a while. But overall, it's not something that stays consistent. There was a while where, like, because there's some of those teams where you just kind of look at them and you're like, oh yeah, they'll win, they'll be dominant. And I thought that for a while for South Carolina at one point, because they kept getting these big name high coaches, but they come close this time. It's something to hang their heads on, I mean, and hope that they go out and compete with these other SEC teams. They've showed that they could beat big time schools in the SEC, and there's plenty of opportunities to get those upsets as the season rolls on for them.
No, yeah, and it's like I said, it's always fun to keep an eye on them because every year, a couple times they do some pretty outstanding shit. Keep it on the SEC train. LSU, man.
Yeah,
Hate to say it, they look good.
Yeah, Jaden Daniels started the game 12 for 12. I was watching it and I was texting you. I know you were still at work at that time, and I was just like, "This is crazy how good this guy looks." And LSU wasted no time. Jaden Daniels threw 4 touchdown passes. They won the game 41-14 at Mississippi State as well. Just wasn't even close at all. It was LSU all day, and what can you say? I mean, they had that 1 week against Florida State where they did not look good and looked like they were prepared. And they come out now and they look like the LSU team that they expected to be. And obviously, if they go undefeated in SEC play, you're in that conversation. You're going to a college football playoff. So big win for them.
Can we still even discredit them that much for Florida State? Besides for the little hiccup this week, Florida State's fucking legit. I mean, they're a good team.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I think this week might have been a little telling for them. It could have, I mean, Boston College not being the most impressive school. I mean, they lost to NIU, an NIU team that lost to Southern Illinois and then got dismantled by Nebraska this week. So they took a bad loss in week 1 at home, and then they almost pull off the huge upset against Florida State this week. But I guess you can't discredit LSU for that loss until Florida State has one of their own, but this was almost a hiccup for Florida State.
Well, I know we covered a little bit on Friday that it was a very emotional kind of game for Boston College. I don't know if any of y'all watched that video I had mentioned on Friday, but really powerful stuff. And like we were talking about locker rooms earlier, that kind of thing, you know, if Florida State doesn't come out firing right out of the gate, you kind of keep building that momentum as you go. And they just rode it down to the wire. I don't even think it was a field goal. I think they lost by 2.
Yeah, it was
31-29.
And Boston College ended up getting the ball back again late. I mean, it was just Florida State making mistake after mistake. Boston College getting the ball back and doing something with it, scoring with it. And they got the opportunity there late, but ultimately Florida State got the ball back right away, and that was the end of the game. But it could have really been a game that we would have been talking about a lot more if Boston College pulled it off and ended up winning, and it would have sent the early standings for the college football playoff into turmoil, because right now Florida State's one of those teams that's in there.
Season ends today. They're a clear favorite.
Yeah, so until they lose, they're gonna be there. So they could play all these close games all you want, but if they're undefeated, they're gonna put them in. So very, very competitive matchup by Boston College. Not to quit. It looked for a while like they were going to get blown out, but they just kept on coming back and kept on punching Florida State in the face, and it made it a really good game where I was sitting there late thinking, oh my God, we might get this huge upset, which kind of does bring me into another upset that happened this week, and what was one of the most dramatic endings to a game I've ever seen in college football. You know, we're used to seeing from time to time, and not very often, a 60-plus yard field goal from an NFL kicker. Don't really see it too often in college football, and we got to see one this week, and it was a walk-off winner from Missouri. Missouri ended up upsetting number 15 Kansas State 30-27 as Harrison Mavis, the field goal kicker for Missouri, he was given the opportunity as time was expired, otherwise they were going to overtime, to kick a 61-yard field goal for the win, and he drilled it. Crazy scene. Missouri fans stormed the stadium. They were out there for a while. Obviously a huge upset for them. I was telling some of my friends, like, you know, that bet with Kansas State, I'm like, I wouldn't have touched this game for anything, because I think Missouri's a lot better team. They're a sneaky good team this year, and they ended up getting a huge upset at home, going to 3-0 on the year in a just crazy fashion. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that.
Another game I unfortunately was not able to keep too close an eye on, but you just love to hear those stories, man. It's awesome, and I'm so sick of everybody talking about enough of rushing the field too. Let the kids have fun.
It's fun. Like you go to college and like growing up, like if you dream to like if you're not the football player, but you love football and you love to watch football, you dream of being a fan at a school that has that ability to do those things. Heck, I
Yeah,
remember,
absolutely. I mean, that's such good culture. And I mean, it brings a campus of, I didn't go to college, so I might be way off. How many people go to college? 20,000 students, 10,000? I don't know. It brings a whole culture together. And
yeah,
I mean, it's so good for the whole program for football. Let the kids have fun. I'm so sick of hearing everybody on TV, on the internet saying, stop it, stop it. It's a routine game. Go to hell. That shit's awesome.
yeah. I didn't get to do it at my time at NIU. NIU was just a dominant school at that time. I mean, the quarterbacks at NIU at that time were Chandler Harnish and Jordan Lynch, and they did not have any problems winning football games. So we were never really the underdog at home where we felt the need to raid the field. But I got to do it twice in high school. And I mean, I'll never forget those moments. One was for a basketball game against our crosstown rival, and one was for a football game against our crosstown rival after not beating them for like 20 years. And
Is that Richard you're talking about?
yeah, and it was so much fun, like just to be able to go and run onto the field, even though it was a field that I had gym class on all the time. But like it was a great time. So
it's nothing special until you make it special, and that's
yeah.
why it is worth something, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's something that has to continue. And a game like this is what it's for. Granted, I don't think Colorado should have rushed the field after being Colorado State, but whatever. If that's what you guys wanted to do, go for it. Like, I mean, I'm not going to get angry about it.
That's kind of a blurred line there because it is a rivalry game, but I believe they rushed after their win last week. After their first home game, you should absolutely pick and choose them. You don't want to make it something that happens every week. You got to save it for those more special, more intimate moments.
Yeah, definitely.
But I can understand with the whole rivalry, all the shit talking going on. On both those campuses all week was nothing but Dion talk. And
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I was sitting there thinking about it too because of how late the game started. Dion and being on College game day at 8 in the morning when the game started at 9 at night, and I'm
that's
just like,
long day.
People sleep. Are they going to sleep at all? And then they're on the field for almost 5 hours. So wild. Just to even think of how long that day was, and that was something that I thought might have kind of made that game a lot closer than it was. Is just that it was kind of a circus all week. So.
Speaking of wild, some wild shit happened to the Hawkeyes. They put up 41.
Yeah, so Iowa ended up covering by 1 point. Late.
Was it 40 or 41?
Yeah, they scored 41, and they ended up covering by 1 or on a late touchdown. That was something that was on my betting card that I was just like, Western Michigan had them the whole game, and then all of a sudden Iowa ended up pulling away and said, we need to put up points for once because Bruno and Chris say that we don't put up points. So, and that's literally what ended up happening.
Took that personally. He said, I'm going to shut these clowns up.
Yeah, that's it. Cade McNamara, a big fan of the show. Iowa ended up scoring a lot more than expected, covering by 1 point. That was one of the many games that I got beat on late this week. It was just a terrible week for backdoor covers. But yeah, not Iowa finally putting up that immaculate number that they needed to put up for a while. So
and across the river, we have Iowa State doing something totally different.
Yeah, so Iowa State,
one of the weirdest endings in college football.
Yeah, Iowa State ended up losing 10-7 to Ohio. There was a field goal that Iowa State made, but the refs said they didn't make it. And
from TV, that went in.
Yeah, and I mean, me and my roommate were sitting here because Iowa State, another team that I bet on this week. Just watching it, I'm like, that went in. Like, they're not doing anything. We didn't have the sound on that game because we had the sound on Notre Dame at the time, and I'm like, that went in. What are they doing? Like, can you challenge that? I don't even know. Like, what? Like, but how are they not reviewing this? And then they probably showed that same field goal for the next 20 minutes. They'd be in the middle of like a 2nd and 7, and they showed it again on TV. I'm like, because he made it, and it was clear to everyone else except for the 2 guys standing underneath where the ball
standing directly beneath the uprights. Yeah.
So, yeah, wild. Unfortunate for Iowa State. They had an opportunity there. If that field goal goes in, good chance we get the cover if they score in any form in overtime. So, yeah, really weird game there. Iowa State was also now put on my ban list after losing 2 straight bets for me. So, no more Iowa State. Maybe I'll bet against them if they got a matchup that is favorable this week, just because I want to bet against them to spite them. So
that was pretty much covers all the bigger games, bigger happenings in college football Saturday. You want to dive into the new AP Top 25?
Yeah, so we'll just kind of go off and tell you some of the changes in terms of the top 25. We don't really want to get into the preview for week 4 yet. There's going to be a lot of games that we talk about this coming Friday. That's going to shake up this whole entire top 25. Like I said, there's 6 first ranked matchups. I know that there's some big time schools that aren't ranked playing a top 10 team, like Clemson's playing this week, and they're not ranked anymore. So there's going to be potential for a lot of upsets. A lot of teams switching around after this week. So we'll kind of run it down. Nothing changing at the top. Georgia and Michigan still at the top. Michigan, once again, with the Gerbs pick of the week, did not cover.
Did not cover.
So Bowling Green handled the cover pretty easily there, as it was a 40 and a half that Michigan was giving them. Michigan didn't even score 40. I think they covered by like 24 points or something. So pretty easy cover for Bowling Green. But Harbaugh comes back for Michigan next week. This is when
Rutgers, I believe.
Yeah, their schedule starts to get a little bit more serious. Rutgers has played well this year. We'll see how it ends up developing for them going forward. But Georgia and Michigan stayed at the top with an easy win for them and a somewhat challenging victory for Georgia. Texas moving up.
Texas and Florida State flip-flopping.
Yeah, so obviously
4 from each other.
Obviously, that has to deal with Florida State and Boston College being so close that Florida State ended up going down to Texas. Doesn't really matter to them right now. These aren't even the official college football poll rankings. They're the AP rankings as of right now. So we won't get those for another 4 or 5 weeks or so. But, as long as you stay undefeated, that's all that matters. People are going to forget about this Boston College game as long as you go out there.
Yeah, nobody in week 11 is going to be, well, you remember week 3 Boston College almost had them late in that one.
Yeah, so
that doesn't happen too often. Nobody on any major networks are going to bring that up. They're going to sweep it under the rug. And for the sake of football, I would not hate to see Florida State in the college football playoff. But until those actual rankings do come out, like you mentioned, stay undefeated. That's the only goal for right now.
Yeah, that's all you really got to do. One loss might really cost them this year because the ACC seems like they're going to be on a down year outside of them for the most part. But we'll see how that ends up going forward as they start ACC play. And North Carolina did stay undefeated this past week. So
that Minnesota game was competitive for a little while. They hung around.
Sure did. And that could be a big matchup later on this year between those two, because that might be the 2 best teams in the ACC. We'll see though. So otherwise within the top 10, everybody stayed the same. USC at 5, Ohio State 6, Penn State 7, Washington 8, Notre Dame 9. We expect to see a lot of change in that and with the next week's developments and how all these games turn out. But a big change, Oregon moved up to number 10 ahead of their game against Colorado next week. Yeah, so 3 spots, impressive win for them. I think that, Oregon being ranked in the top 10 coming into this game against Colorado might have a little something to do with it, just to make the game a little bit more spicy.
From 10 on, we have a lot of movement.
Yeah, so within
Utah moved up one.
the
LSU's
top,
clawing
like
back.
every
LSU's clawing back
yeah,
to the top
LSU,
10. They're up 2 spots, and Alabama love to see it down 3 in 13.
yeah, so Alabama once again being moved down because of how unimpressive they were. That quarterback situation that we mentioned. So they're down 3 spots. They were ranked 10th last week, now 13th. They're going to have to show up against the rest of the SEC. LSU coming out there and dominating the way they did, already getting them to number 12 in another week, like we said, with all the change that's going to happen. LSU could be ranked in the top 10 again. So,
yeah, they keep playing the way they're playing. Kudos to Brian Kelly getting his team back in there. I mean, they will be in the top 10 by the end of the year if they keep a clean slate.
Absolutely. Some other movement. Oregon State continuing to impress, going to 3-0. Ole Miss 3-0. They will play Alabama next week, as mentioned. So one of those teams is moving up. One of those teams is moving down. Oklahoma up 3 spots, which, I mean, this is probably just it seems kind of weird. Like Oklahoma's 16, 3-0. And normally this time of year, if they're 3-0, they're ranked number 2 or 3. It seems like so. This is kind of strange. Like this is the first time I'm even thinking about Oklahoma this year.
Yeah, I don't think I watched an Oklahoma game this year, but yeah. I don't really remember them playing anybody great. What I do remember them doing is putting up 50 a couple times at least.
Yeah, I mean, I think
I don't know their opponents, but they're hammering them.
Yeah, I honestly, like, it's just weird to me that like they haven't even come across my thought process or in my mind this season. And they're 16 and undefeated, not normal for Oklahoma, but maybe it's a good thing for them because they're always so highly rated and they get that big loss early on in the season.
Keep them humble. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see how that continues and see if there's a reason maybe why they started off so lowly ranked compared to what they normally are. We got North Carolina, who we just talked about, up 3 spots. Drake May had a good week this week. North Carolina probably playing their most put together game against a pretty decent opponent. So good for them to go out there and do that. Duke up 3 spots after they blew out Northwestern. Northwestern on a down year. Colorado drops. Another game
which we kind of highlighted earlier, but I don't think they're in any serious trouble. If they take care of Oregon next week, it's
yeah.
I mean, are we looking top 10? They're going to be up there. I mean, they can't not put them after jumping Tennessee 13 spots or something. I don't remember what it was, but the way they're moving these guys around, if they can take care of Oregon, it's going to be a huge leap.
Yeah, and I mean, there's going to be a lot of teams that are going to be down at the end of next week anyway, so it'll be interesting to see. I'm not even going to get into what I think is going to happen to Colorado this week because I don't think it'll be pretty for them, but we'll get more on that come Friday and after we look a little bit more into it. Oh, and geez, as we're talking about Colorado and Colorado State, Colorado State DB Henry Blackburn and his family receiving death threats after a legal hit that on Colorado's Travis Hunter. So the hit that kind of hurt him, and now an ugly story developing right away as we're.
There's no room in football for that kind of thing.
Yep, it's not necessary. The kid didn't. I mean, by all accounts, hopefully didn't purposely mean to hurt Travis Hunter or do anything along those lines. I know that it was very
chippy. Emotional, fast-paced game.
Yeah, I know it was very chippy. I have to go back and look at this hit now. But yeah, just that's something coming up. So the breaking news keeps on happening in this time of day for college football. So it looks like we're on at a good time.
Yeah, absolutely no room for that in college football. No room for targeting. I didn't watch the game. I didn't watch most of it. I caught a little bit on the radio, but I don't know if he got ejected for targeting. I don't know what happened. I did not see the hit, but that is
I'm gonna take
inexcusable.
This. So and see what it was. But yeah, I mean, come on. You don't want to be like, I know this happens all the time. I know that fans are crazy about their college teams and, but down in a beer or something. Like, you don't need to go
Right.
to the extremes that people are going to with this situation. We'll see how this develops, and if there's more on it, we'll talk more about it on Friday. But to wrap up our top 25 talk, Miami up 2, Washington State up 2, UCLA up 2, Tennessee the
down
big
12.
one after getting beat down by Florida. Yeah. So down to 23. As expected, you lost to a non-ranked team, and you lost them in ugly fashion. So going to take a lot to turn around in the season and get them back into any type of New Year's Six talks. And really, I mean, you got to win out now. You can't lose more than one game in the SEC. So.
And then 24-25, our boys over at Iowa putting up 41, jumping one spot from 25 to 24. And Florida, with their upset win, squeaks them into the top 25, rounding it off.
Yeah, so not really any surprises with it. We're seeing why teams are dropping down that did drop down, whether it be just close wins to teams that they were supposed to blow out or, bad losses in general. But like we said, next week's going to be the major showing of everything. And we'll have a lot more to say about the top 25, and college football is going to go through a major change after week 4, which we look forward to.
Friday is going to be a long, fun show. Grab a few beers and get ready.
Yeah. So, last thing before we head out here, I'll do a quick little recap of the gambling slate. This was my poorest week for sure. It looked like it was going to be a really good week to start. All my teams were up. I was up 4 games to 0 early. I did sprinkle on Boston College. So the early slate, I ended up going 3-2 with that Boston College game, which I won't include in my full season record just because that was really just more of a sprinkle than anything. But I went 2-2 early as Iowa State wasn't able to cover. Georgia Southern backdoor cover against Wisconsin. They were in the game the whole way. Ended up giving up a late touchdown. They had plenty of chances where they could have tied this game up. This game should have been more of an overtime game than a 21-point loss, but 35-14 was the final. Had Georgia Southern plus 20, so game that was tough to lose there on the betting slate. Was not fun. South Carolina was an easy cover against Georgia. Western Michigan, backdoor cover for Iowa, so the second one I lost by the odds makers just being right there correctly. The one of 2 that were really, really bad for me this week, Western Kentucky versus Ohio State. Western Kentucky getting 30 points. They were in the game, but overall, they fell apart late in the second quarter. Ohio State just ran away with it.
They fought for about 20 minutes, the first 20 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like they were going to even take the lead there before they gave up the first touchdown late in the second quarter. Then Ohio State just went scoring like crazy. One that was kind of surprising that me and you both talked about that we didn't cover in our recap in general, but Oklahoma State played South Alabama. Oklahoma State was -7. And we thought, okay, like that's a little disrespectful, OK State. Well, apparently not. South Alabama with the biggest upset of the day, going 33-7 over Oklahoma State.
Is South Alabama legit?
Really
is Oklahoma State bad?
Did not. Yeah, I mean, I think they must be. I don't know. Like another thing, like with their in-state rival Oklahoma, just like you haven't really heard about them like you normally would early in the year. Haven't really seen them on TV, and here they go getting blown out to a South Alabama team that I can't even tell you who South Alabama's mascot is. So, 33-7, bad one.
There.
Bowling Green though was a cover.
Bowling Green
was
hit.
A cover at
my officially unofficial Boston College spread hit.
And then the last one I had on the card for today was Pitt in West Virginia. We mentioned how West Virginia took care of business there, winning 17-6. Pitt not able to score a touchdown. So went 4-6. That makes me 14, 12-1 on the year. So The numbers have gone down. The units have gone down. That was a rough week. Might have to slow down on the number of picks I have next week because I got hooked so badly this week with 2 of them. But we'll see
Over
how it goes
500
going
is
forward.
nothing to
I'm going to
complain
get
about.
more. Yeah, I'm going to do more research this week. I'm going to take my lunch breaks and start grinding away at midnight and 3:30 in the morning. So
Yeah, the reason I don't bet is because I scroll through my phone. I was like, them +7. Okay, here's $20, and then I cry about losing $20. So that's why I like
yeah,
to keep it short and sweet. I will give you a little spoiler.
yeah.
Friday will not be a Michigan spread, but there will be a ridiculous one.
Yeah, so Michigan having to play a real opponent now, you're gonna have to go outside of it. But the
It's
3-0
not
run
even
is
about the real opponent thing. I just feel like if Harbaugh being his first game this year from suspension, I feel like if they're up 40-0, Harbaugh is going to say, "Fuck it, keep your foot on the gas. Let's blow them out 70-0." And
oh
I don't want to run the risk of my first 3 bets hardly putting up points, having to keep up with the spread. So I like playing it cool. There will be a ridiculous one. Let's hope it hits. We'll see.
yeah, we'll have to see. You're gonna have to really hit the books hard this week to find that game. So
It's me scrolling through Bleacher Report at work, hitting the books.
yeah, I mean, whatever your system is, it works. So
All right, Brew, you good?
yeah, that's all I got for you today.
Tin Knocker 73, thank you.
That's
Great show,
Nick
boys.
Nat.
We appreciate it. We appreciate all the love, all the viewers.
So that's our buddy Nick Nat. So we always bring up his brother Fat Zach. Nick Nat is Tin Knocker. So thanks for watching, Nick, and thanks for getting involved. People, please go on the YouTube channel. We're still getting used to this whole broadcasting thing, so we just realized we could talk along with you on YouTube while we're doing it. So please just keep watching. If you have any opinions, anything you want us to talk about, the best way is to go on to YouTube. I know I got some people texting me, but I don't look at my text messages. Otherwise, I'm going to get really distracted. So
I take a peek down every so often, but that's more for studio notes rather than anything else regarding my phone.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, guys. Have a good afternoon. We will see you Friday. This has been College Football on Tap, brought to you by the On Tap Sports Net.
Later, everyone.